Hello, welcome to the first episode of Bread for Dough. I guess the first question that comes to mind is, why are we baking bread if we're doing a horror film campaign? And that's really because I want to get your attention. I want to develop your interest to watch these videos, to watch the campaign, come back, see what happens later. So this is my little thing. And of course there's the $200 donation. For that you get a wonderful loaf of bread. And hopefully I'll buy your interest as time goes on here. This is my arsenal right here, just to let you know. This is a piece of what we're going to be working with as the weeks go on. Okay, the basis of everything I do is a standard white bread recipe. And this is what we need here. You need flour, sugar, oil, yeast of course, salt, a couple eggs, water, and then gluten flour. And we'll talk about all these. Okay, so we've got wet ingredients and dry ingredients. I'm going to mix up the dry ingredients first and start by measuring the flour. Different bread makers are going to use different capacities. 2-pound bread maker is going to use 3 cups of flour. This particular one uses 2.5. Everything's to scale. Okay, starting out with the flour, I want 2.5 cups of flour. I'm not really into the argument about whether or not you should measure or sift. For me, it doesn't matter. Okay, so we have 3 cups of flour. Adding to that, sugar. 3 tablespoons of sugar. This is necessary even if you're not making a sweet bread, because this is what the yeast eats to grow. So 1, 2, and 3. Just throw that right down there. I gotta go back. Talk about flour for a second. There's white flour and then there's bread flour. Bread flour basically already has the gluten in it, and you can add a little more to that. It's going to cost you more to buy the bread flour. I either use bread flour or I'll use the white flour and then just add extra gluten to it. Now, some people have allergies to gluten, of course. I'm not going to deal with that really. It's not a large percentage of the population. If you do have a gluten allergy, you know it, and then you have to deal with it using special recipes and stuff. Okay, so now if this was a regular bread flour, it would have the gluten in it. So I'm going to add 3 tablespoons to this. 1, 2, 3. Next up is my salt. Put that away. Again, the basic recipe, a teaspoon of salt. Okay, those are my dry ingredients. Just mix those together. Back to the sifting thing, you can sift if you choose to. I don't really bother, but you certainly can. Okay. Dry ingredients all ready. Let's set them aside and work on the wet ingredients. Okay, part 2 here. Now we have the wet ingredients. Really all we have is water, a couple of eggs, and oil. And then at the very end you'll see we'll come back to yeast. So for this recipe, 3/4 of a cup of water. You got a big bread maker, 2-pound bread maker, full cup of water. Okay, 2 eggs. It's best to beat these. I really just put it right into the water, frankly. Saves me a step. You know, you watch out for shells. Because it breaks up the yolks and gets them going pretty good. Be a little careful not to splash here, or you can just do it in a smaller container. You can do the eggs first. Throw it into the water, obviously that's just fine. Okay, so we get a nice broken up egg. Standard recipe is regular oil, 6 tablespoons. Personally, I try to go a little lower fat. I use 4. I've got this nice little measuring cup that has 4, so it's perfect for me. So 4 tablespoons of oil, which is 60 mLs. And there you go. Those are our wet ingredients. Show you the bread maker real quick. We got the internal container. It has a little paddle inside it that will turn. So we'll pull this out. Obviously it's going to be really hot when you pull it back out later. It snaps in. First thing we do, put our wet ingredients on the bottom. Okay. Okay, now you've got all the dry ingredients. These go on top. I do this in 2 steps because I want to kind of get a pile with a little bit of a heap in the middle. About half of it. And then I turn it in the other diagonal and just dump the rest of it in. It gives me a nice little pile in the middle. And we just take the spoon, we make a little bit of a nudge there. And finally, the yeast. If you've got good fresh yeast, a teaspoon. Yeast does age and it will die off, so you can adjust it up a little bit as it ages a bit. Let's go ahead and put a teaspoon in. And that is it. Plug this guy in. Go through the different settings on here. This is a standard white, so I'll use the basic recipe. I'm going to go for light crust, and then we just go. But that's basically it. This thing's going to go through 2 stages. It mixes once, it takes some time, it mixes a second time, and then it takes time to rise, and then it bakes. So this goes about 3 hours to do all that. Tell you, this is the hardest part about baking bread, is not just slicing into it right away. It's best to let this sit for about half an hour, but I'm gonna let you guys right in on this. This first, ooh, it's steam coming off.